Manchester United crisis. Xavi ready to take over from Amorim. The inside story. Hey everyone, welcome back to United Daily Updates. Before we dive into today's massive story, I just want to say thank you for being here. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're in the right place for honest, no-nonsense Manchester United news. We don't do clickbait here. We don't make stuff up. We just give you the facts about our beloved club, the good and the bad. So if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications because we're your trusted source for everything Red Devils. Now, let's talk about what's really going on at Old Trafford right now. The storm brewing at Old Trafford. Something is seriously wrong at Manchester United. I know. You're probably thinking, when isn't there something wrong at United these days? But hear me out. This feels different. This feels like we're heading toward another one of those moments that defines our club's direction for years to come. Just 4 minutes ago, as I'm writing this, news broke that has sent shockwaves through the United community. We're talking about potential managerial changes. Again. Yes, already. Ruben Amorim only just got here, and now we're hearing about who might replace him. Can you believe it? The latest report comes from Sean Marcus Clifford over at Football Fancast, and what is uncovered is both fascinating and deeply concerning for us United fans. According to transfer guru Fabrizio Romano, Barcelona legend Xavi Hernandez is not just interested in the Manchester United job. He would go immediately if Ineos came calling, even without European football. Let that sink in for a moment. But before we get into all that Xavi talk, we need to understand how we got here. How did we go from the excitement of a new manager to speculation about his replacement in such a short time? What's really happening behind the scenes at our club? And most importantly, what does this mean for the future of Manchester United? Grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's break this whole situation down together. Trust me, you're going to want to hear every bit of this. The Brentford disaster. More than just another loss. Let's start with the match that has everyone talking. Brentford away. On paper, it should have been a game we could win. Sure, Brentford are a decent side. They've caused problems for bigger teams before. But Manchester United, even in our current state, should be beating teams like Brentford if we have any ambitions of getting back to where we belong. But we didn't just lose. We looked lost. There's a difference between losing a tight game where you were unlucky and losing because you simply weren't good enough. This was the latter. And that's what has alarm bells ringing all over Old Trafford and among our fan base. The performance was everything that's wrong with this Manchester United team right now. We were leaky at the back. We couldn't defend properly. Every time Brentford came forward, it felt like they might score. And at the other end of the pitch, we couldn't finish our chances. We were wasteful. We were careless. We looked like a team that didn't know what it was doing. Now, I've been watching United for a long time. I've seen us lose games before. I've seen us have bad days at the office. But what worried me most about the Brentford game wasn't just that we lost. It was how we lost. It was the lack of fight. The lack of organization. The lack of any clear plan or identity. And here's the really scary part. This wasn't a one-off. This is the story of our season. Inconsistency. 1 week we look decent. The next week we look like a team fighting relegation. We can't seem to string together good performances. We can't seem to build any momentum. And as a result, we've fallen to 14th in the Premier League table, 14th. Manchester United. Let that sink in. One of the biggest clubs in world football, sitting in 14th place in our own domestic league. Below teams with a fraction of our budget. Below teams with a fraction of our history. Below teams that should be looking up at us, not down. This is not where Manchester United should be. This is not acceptable. And everyone at the club knows it. The pressure is building. The questions are being asked. And Ruben Amorim, the man who was supposed to be our savior, is now facing serious doubts about his future. Matthijs de Ligt speaks out. The concentration problem. After the Brentford defeat, one of our players decided to speak up. Matthijs de Ligt, the Dutch defender we signed to shore up our defense, gave an interview to BBC Sport. And what he said was both honest and revealing. De Ligt didn't make excuses. He didn't blame the referee. He didn't talk about bad luck or unfortunate circumstances. Instead, he pointed the finger right at the players. At himself and his teammates. He talked about focus. About concentration. About the mental side of the game that so many people overlook. Here's what De Ligt said, and I think every United fan needs to hear this. It's always easy to look at the manager, but in the end the players on the pitch have to do it. The goals we conceded, the chances we conceded, are because of what? You guys, the media, always talk about the system, But it also has a lot to do with focus and concentration. He went on to say that when focus and concentration are lacking in key moments, it makes a difference. And when you're playing against a team like Brentford who know exactly what they're doing, they will punish you. They will kill you, as De Ligt put it. Now, there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, credit to De Ligt for being honest. In modern football, we so often get generic answers from players. They talk about giving 110%, about the team being united, about how they'll work hard in training. It's all meaningless noise, but De Ligt actually said something real. He identified a genuine problem. The lack of concentration. The lack of focus. These are mental issues, not tactical ones. These are problems that come from within the players themselves, not from the manager's game plan. And this is important because so much of the criticism around Manchester United right now is directed at Ruben Amorim. People are questioning his tactics, his team selection, his substitutions, his entire approach to managing the club. But according to De Ligt, the tactics aren't the main problem. The problem is that the players aren't focused enough. They're not concentrating enough. They're making basic mistakes at crucial moments. Think about that for a second. These are professional footballers. They're paid hundreds of thousands of pounds per week. They're supposed to be among the best players in the world. And yet they're struggling with something as fundamental as concentration. That's a huge problem. That's a problem that goes way deeper than just tactics or formation. De Ligt also made it clear that the players know they have to take responsibility. He said it's easy to blame the manager, but ultimately the players are the ones on the pitch. They're the ones who have to execute the game plan. They're the ones who have to stay focused and concentrated throughout the full 90 minutes. This is refreshing honesty, but it's also deeply worrying. If our players are admitting that they lack concentration, that they switch off at key moments, then we have a serious problem. Because that's not something that can be fixed with a new formation or a clever tactical tweak. That's a mentality issue. That's a character issue. And those are much harder to solve. Understanding the pressure on Ruben Amorim. Now let's talk about Ruben Amorim. The man at the center of all this drama. The man who was supposed to be the answer to Manchester United's problems. The man who is now facing questions about his own future at the club. When United appointed Amorim, there was genuine excitement among the fan base. Here was a young, progressive coach who had done brilliant things at Sporting Lisbon. He'd won titles in Portugal. He'd developed young players. He played attractive, attacking football. He seemed like exactly the kind of manager United needed. But the reality has been very different from the expectation. Results have been poor. Performances have been inconsistent. And the team looks just as confused and disorganized as it did under previous managers. It's like nothing has changed, even though we've got a completely different person in charge. So what's gone wrong? Why hasn't Amorim been able to turn things around? Is it his fault, or are there deeper problems at the club that no manager can fix? These are the questions that everyone at Manchester United is asking right now. And they're difficult questions to answer because the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Yes, Amorim has made some mistakes. His team selection has been questionable at times. His in-game management hasn't always been great. And he hasn't been able to get a consistent tune out of these players. But at the same time, he's inherited an absolute mess. This Manchester United squad is unbalanced. It's full of players who don't fit together. It's full of big egos and big wages but not enough quality or character. And the club structure around the team has been chaotic for years. Managers come and go, but the problems remain the same. Amorim is also working with Ineros now, the new part owners of the club who are supposed to be bringing a new approach to how United operates. But change takes time. Building a proper football structure takes time. And right now, time is something Amorim doesn't have much of. The pressure is building. The fans are getting restless. The media is asking questions. And according to reports, there are people at the club who are already thinking about alternatives. Already wondering if maybe Amorim isn't the right man for this job after all. It's a brutal business, football management. Especially at a club like Manchester United where expectations are sky high and patience is in short supply. Amorim knew what he was getting into when he took this job. But knowing something and experiencing it are two very different things. The upcoming match against Sunderland is now massive for Amorim. United need to win. They need to put in a good performance. They need to show some fight, some organization, some sign that things are moving in the right direction. Because if they don't, the speculation about his future is only going to get louder. Enter Xavi, the Barcelona legend watching and waiting. And this brings us to the big news. The headline that has everyone talking. According to Fabrizio Romano, one of the most reliable journalists in football when it comes to transfer news and managerial situations, Xavi Hernandez is very interested in the Manchester United job. Now, Before we go any further, let's be clear about what Romano actually said. He didn't say that United have approached Xavi. He didn't say that Xavi is in talks with the club. What he said was that Xavi is studying the Premier League, monitoring the Premier League, and would go immediately to Manchester United if Ineos made an approach. Even without European football. That last part is significant. Even without European football. Think about what that means. Manchester United are currently sitting in 14th place in the Premier League. Unless something dramatic changes, we're not going to qualify for the Champions League next season. We might not even qualify for the Europa League. We might not be in any European competition at all. For a club of United stature, that would be absolutely humiliating. But for a manager like Xavi, the fact that he'd still be interested says something. It says that he sees Manchester United as a huge opportunity. It says that he believes in the potential of the club, even in its current state. And it says that he's confident he could be the one to turn things around. So who is Xavi, for those who might not know? Well, if you know anything about football, you know Xavi. He's one of the greatest midfielders of all time. He spent most of his playing career at Barcelona, where he won everything there is to win. Multiple Champions League titles. Multiple La Liga titles. World Cups and European Championships with Spain. He was the heartbeat of that great Barcelona team under Pep Guardiola. The team that played the most beautiful football many of us have ever seen as a player. Xavi was known for his intelligence, his passing ability, his vision, and his understanding of the game. He wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the strongest. But he was always 2 steps ahead of everyone else mentally. He controlled games. He dictated tempo. He made everyone around him better. When Xavi retired as a player, it was always expected that he would go into management. He understood the game so well. He had such a clear philosophy about how football should be played. And he'd learned from some of the best coaches in the world during his playing days, especially Guardiola. Xavi started his coaching career at Al Sadd in Qatar. Now, some people might look down on the Qatari league. They might say it's not a proper test for a manager. But Xavi did well there. He won the Qatar Stars League in 2021. He won the Qatar Cup twice. He won several other domestic trophies. He showed that he could organize a team, implement his ideas, and win matches. But the big test came when Barcelona came calling. In 2021, Barcelona were in crisis. They'd lost Lionel Messi. They were in financial trouble. They were struggling on the pitch. They needed someone who understood the club, who could restore the Barcelona identity, who could bring back the good times. And they turned to Xavi. Xavi's time at Barcelona was mixed. On one hand, he did win La Liga in 2023. That's Barcelona's biggest domestic trophy. He also won the Spanish Super Cup. So he wasn't unsuccessful. He showed he could compete at the highest level. He showed he could win big trophies at a big club. But on the other hand, things didn't end well. Barcelona struggled in his final season. They didn't play great football. The results weren't good enough. And eventually, the club decided to make a change. Xavi was replaced by Hansi Flick in May 2024. Since then, he's been out of work. Watching. Waiting. Studying. And according to Romano, keeping a very close eye on the Premier League and specifically on Manchester United. What would Xavi bring to Manchester United? So let's talk about what Xavi would actually bring to Manchester United if he did become our next manager. What's his style? What's his philosophy? How would he set up the team? And most importantly, would he be able to solve the problems that have plagued this club for years? First and foremost, Xavi has a very clear footballing philosophy. He believes in possession-based football. He wants his teams to control the ball, to dominate games through technical quality and intelligent movement. This is the Barcelona way. The Pep Guardiola way. And it's what Xavi learned throughout his entire career. Xavi typically uses a 4-3-3 formation. That's his preferred system. 3 midfielders who can control games. 3 forwards who can stretch defenses and create chances. Fullbacks who push forward to provide width. Centre-backs who are comfortable on the ball and can play out from the back. Now, here's an interesting question. Would that work at Manchester United? Would a possession-based, technical style suit the players we have? Would Premier League opponents give us the space to play that way? These are legitimate concerns. The Premier League is different from La Liga. It's faster. It's more physical. Teams press higher. They're more aggressive. You don't always get the time and space to play pretty passing football. And some of the players in our current squad aren't particularly technical. They're not comfortable in tight spaces. They're not great at keeping the ball under pressure. But maybe that's exactly what we need to change. Maybe we need to move away from this idea of just buying big names and hoping they'll click. Maybe we need a clear identity, a clear style, a clear way of playing that everyone understands and buys into. That's what Xavi would bring. He wouldn't come in and try to work with what's already here if it doesn't fit his vision. He'd want to build a team in his image. He'd want players who can pass, who can move, who understand positioning and space. He'd want to implement a style that's recognizable and consistent. Xavi is also someone who believes in giving young players chances. At Barcelona, he brought through several youngsters. He trusted them. He developed them. And that could be huge for Manchester United. We've got some talented young players at the club. We've got a good academy. But too often, these kids don't get opportunities. They don't get the game time they need to develop. Under Xavi, that might change. He's not afraid to trust youth. He's not going to just play the big-name signings because of their reputation or their wages. He'll play the players who fit his system and who show the right attitude, regardless of age or experience. Another thing Xavi would bring is winning experience. Yes, his Barcelona tenure ended disappointingly. But he did win La Liga. He did win trophies. He knows what it takes to succeed at the highest level. He's been there as a player and as a manager. He understands the pressure. He understands what top clubs demand. And let's not forget, Xavi has been out of work since May 2024. That's several months now. He's had time to reflect. Time to analyze what went wrong at Barcelona. Time to learn from his mistakes. Time to study other leagues and other teams. According to Romano, he's been specifically studying the Premier League. That suggests he's doing his homework. He's preparing himself for his next challenge. And that challenge might be Manchester United. The Graham Potter and Gareth Southgate alternatives. Now, Xavi isn't the only name being mentioned as a potential replacement for Amorim. The report also mentions two other candidates, Graham Potter and Gareth Southgate. Let's talk about both of them and what they would bring to United. Graham Potter is an interesting option. He's English. He knows the Premier League inside out. And he's shown at Brighton that he can build a team that plays good football with limited resources. Brighton under Potter were brilliant to watch. They played out from the back. They pressed intelligently. They had a clear identity. And they punched well above their weight. Then Potter got his big break. Chelsea came calling. He went to Stamford Bridge with big expectations. And it didn't work out. The results were poor. The performances were inconsistent. And eventually, he was sacked. Since then, he's been out of work, just like Xavi. Would Potter be a good fit for United? Maybe. He's a good coach. He has a clear philosophy. He develops players well. But there are questions. Can he handle the pressure of a club like United? Can he manage big egos and big personalities? Can he succeed with the weight of expectation that comes with managing Manchester United? These are the same questions that got asked when he went to Chelsea. And unfortunately for Potter, he didn't answer them convincingly. That doesn't mean he couldn't succeed at United. But it does mean there would be doubts. Then there's Gareth Southgate. Now, this one divides opinion among United fans. Southgate did a good job as England manager. He got them to a World Cup semi-final. He got them to 2 European Championship finals. He restored pride and belief to the national team. Those are significant achievements. But there are concerns too. England under Southgate often played quite negative football. They were solid defensively, but they didn't always play with ambition or creativity. They had some of the best attacking players in world football, but they often looked toothless going forward. And in the big moments, in the finals, they couldn't get over the line. Would United fans accept Southgate? Would they be excited by his appointment? I'm not sure. There would definitely be some who would give him a chance. But there would also be many who would see it as an uninspiring, safe choice. A typical United decision that shows a lack of ambition. And here's the thing. If United do decide to sack Amorim and bring in someone new, it needs to be someone who gets the fan base excited. Someone who offers genuine hope. Someone who feels like a proper solution to our problems, not just another temporary fix. Out of the 3 names mentioned, Xavi feels like the most exciting option. He's got the biggest profile. He's won the biggest trophies. He's got a clear philosophy that could transform how United play. Potter and Southgate are decent managers, but they don't have that same star quality. They don't have that same wow factor. The INEOS factor. A new era at Manchester United. To understand what's happening at Manchester United right now, we need to talk about INEOS. They're the new part owners of the club, and they're supposed to be bringing a new approach to how United operates. INEOS, led by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, bought a stake in Manchester United with the promise of sorting out the football side of things. The Glazers are still the majority owners, But Ineos are now in control of football operations. They're making decisions about managers, players, recruitment, and the overall direction of the club. This is significant because for years, United's problems have stemmed from poor decision-making at the top. Bad managerial appointments. Bad transfer business. No clear strategy or vision. Just chaos and confusion year after year. Ineos are supposed to change that. They're supposed to bring expertise and professionalism. They're supposed to build a proper football structure. They're supposed to make smart decisions based on data and analysis, not just panic and emotion. But so far, we haven't seen much evidence of this new approach working. Yes, they appointed Amorim, and that seemed like a smart choice at the time. But the results haven't been good. And now we're already hearing about potential replacements. That doesn't suggest a clear long-term plan. That suggests the same old United, reactive, panicky, short-term thinking that if Ineos do decide to sack Amorim and bring in Xavi or someone else, it will say a lot about their approach. Are they willing to give managers time to implement their ideas? Or are they going to jump from one manager to another every time results dip? One of the big problems at United over the last decade has been the lack of continuity. We've had so many different managers, each with different styles and different philosophies. If Ineos are serious about fixing United, they need to break that cycle. They need to appoint the right manager and then back him properly. Give him time. Give him resources. Give him support. Don't just sack him at the first sign of trouble. But the reality is, football is a results business. If you're sitting in 14th place in the Premier League, something has to change. You can't just accept mediocrity and hope things get better. At some point, you have to make tough decisions. The question is, are Ineos making those decisions based on a clear strategy? Or are they just reacting to poor results like everyone else? Time will tell. But the fact that we're already talking about potential replacements for Amorim doesn't fill me with confidence. What this means for the players. Let's talk about the players for a minute. Because while we're all focused on managers and tactics and club structure, the players are the ones who actually have to go out on the pitch and perform. And right now, they're not performing well enough. The question is, why? Are they not good enough? Are they not trying hard enough? Are they confused by the tactics? Are they dealing with too much pressure? What's actually going wrong? I think the answer is probably a combination of all those things. The United squad is unbalanced. We've got too many players in some positions and not enough in others. We've got players who don't suit the system we're trying to play. We've got players who are past their best. We've got players who have never really settled at the club. But we've also got some good players. Some talented players. Players who should be performing at a much higher level than they currently are. And that's where the manager comes in. It's the manager's job to get the best out of these players. To organize them. To motivate them. To create an environment where they can succeed. According to De Ligt, the problem isn't really the tactics. It's the concentration. The focus. The mentality. And if that's true, then that's on the players. They need to take responsibility. They need to look at themselves in the mirror and ask if they're really giving everything. If they're really doing their jobs properly. But here's the thing. If a new manager comes in, whether it's Xavi or someone else, these same players will still be here. And they'll have to prove themselves all over again. They'll have to show that they can adapt to a new system, a new philosophy, a new set of demands. Some of them will thrive. Some of them will struggle. And some of them will probably be moved on. That's just how football works. When a new manager arrives, he brings his own ideas about what he needs. And players who don't fit those ideas usually find themselves on the way out. If Xavi does come to United, there will definitely be players who don't fit his vision. Players who can't play possession-based football. Players who aren't comfortable with the ball at their feet. Players who don't have the technical quality he demands. Those players will be under pressure. Their futures will be in doubt. But equally, there might be players who benefit from Xavi's arrival. Players who suit his style. Players who will flourish in a possession-based system. Players who will finally get the chance to show what they can do. The bottom line is this: the players can't just keep going through manager after manager and expect nothing to change. At some point, they have to take responsibility. They have to step up. They have to show that they're capable of playing for Manchester United. Because right now, too many of them aren't showing that. The fan perspective, patience running out. As a United fan, I have to be honest with you. My patience is running out. And I know I'm not alone. I know millions of United fans around the world feel exactly the same way. We've been through so much disappointment over the last decade. So many false dawns. So many times we've thought things were getting better, only for it all to fall apart again. We've had different managers, different players, different strategies. But the one constant has been disappointment. And now here we are again. Another manager struggling. Another team underperforming. Another season where we're nowhere near where we should be. It's exhausting. It's frustrating. And honestly, it's heartbreaking. I grew up watching Manchester United win everything. I remember the treble season. I remember the Champions League finals. I remember when United were the team everyone feared. When Old Trafford was a fortress. When wearing that red shirt meant something. Now, when I watch United, I don't feel that same sense of pride and excitement. I feel anxiety. I feel dread. I wonder which version of the team will show up. Will they be decent, or will they be a complete mess? It's no way to support a football club. And I know changing the manager won't magically fix everything. I know the problems at United go much deeper than just who's in the dugout. But at the same time, we can't just accept this. We can't just keep saying, give it time, things will improve. At some point, you have to demand better. If Xavi does become United manager, I'll give him a chance. Of course I will. He's a legend of the game. He knows what it takes to win. He's got a clear vision for how football should be played. Maybe he's the one who can finally turn this around. But I won't get carried away with excitement. I've been burned too many times before. I've seen too many promising starts turn into disappointing finishes. I'll wait and see. I'll judge him on results and performances, not on his reputation or his history. And I think that's where most United fans are right now. We're cautiously hopeful but deeply skeptical. We want to believe things can get better. We want to believe the club can get back to where it belongs. But we need to see evidence. We need to see progress. We need to see something that gives us genuine reason to believe. The financial reality, what United can and can't afford. Let's talk about money for a minute. Because while we're all focused on football, the reality is that finances play a huge role in everything that happens at Manchester United. United are one of the richest clubs in the world. We generate huge revenues from commercial deals, broadcasting rights, and matchday income. But we also spend huge amounts. And we've spent badly for years. The club has wasted hundreds of millions of pounds on players who didn't work out. We've paid huge wages to players who haven't performed. We've made poor decisions in the transfer market over and over again. And now, because of financial fair play rules, we're limited in what we can spend. If Xavi does come to United, he's going to want to bring in new players. He's going to want to shape the squad in his image. But will the money be there? Will INEOS and the Glazers back him with the funds he needs? This is crucial. Because if you appoint a manager with a clear philosophy, but then you don't give him the players to execute that philosophy, you're setting him up to fail. It's pointless bringing in someone like Xavi who wants to play possession-based football if you're not going to sign the technical players he needs. United also need to think about the wages they're paying. We've got players on massive contracts who aren't earning their money. We need to move some of these players on. But that's easier said than done. Who's going to buy a player on £200,000 a week who's not performing? Who's going to take on those wages? This is the reality of modern football. It's not just about tactics and formations and who's the best manager. It's about financial planning. It's about making smart decisions in the transfer market. It's about building a sustainable squad that can compete over the long term. Ineros need to get this right. They need to support whoever the manager is with proper resources. But they also need to be smart. They can't just throw money at the problem and hope it works out. They need a clear strategy, a clear plan, a clear vision for what Manchester United should look like. The comparison game. What can United learn from other clubs? When you look at the clubs that are successful right now, what do they all have in common? They have a clear identity. They have a clear way of playing. They have stability in the manager's position. They have good recruitment. They make smart decisions. Look at Manchester City under Pep Guardiola. They've dominated English football for years because they have a clear philosophy and they've built a squad perfectly suited to that philosophy. Every player knows their role. Every player fits the system. And the results speak for themselves. Look at Liverpool under Jurgen Klopp, and now under Arne Slot. They've continued to be successful because they don't panic. They don't rip everything up and start again every time they have a bad run. They stick to their principles. They trust their process. Look at Arsenal under Mikel Arteta. A few years ago, Arsenal fans were calling for Arteta to be sacked. Results weren't good enough. But the club backed him. They gave him time. They let him build something. And now Arsenal are one of the best teams in England. What's the lesson for United? Patience. Consistency. A clear plan that everyone buys into. Stop changing managers every 2 years. Stop ripping up the squad every summer. Stop lurching from one philosophy to another. If you appoint Xavi, or whoever the next manager is, give him time. Give him resources. Give him support. Let him build something. Don't expect instant success. Don't panic if results aren't perfect immediately. Have a long-term vision and stick to it. But there's a balance here. You can't just be patient for the sake of being patient. If things clearly aren't working, if there's no sign of progress, then you have to make a change. The trick is knowing when to be patient and when to act. Right now, with Amorim, I'm not sure we've seen enough to make a fair judgment. He's only been in the job a short time. He's inherited a difficult situation. Maybe he deserves more time. Or maybe the problems are so deep that no amount of time will help. That's what Ineros have to figure out. What happens next? The crucial weeks ahead. So where do we go from here? What actually happens next at Manchester United? In the immediate term, all eyes on the Sunderland game this weekend. United need to win. They need to put in a good performance. They need to show some character and some fight. Because if they lose to Sunderland at home, the pressure on Amorim is going to be unbearable. But beyond that, there are bigger questions that need answering. Is Amorim going to be given time to turn this around? Or are Ineros already planning to make a change? If they do make a change, when will it happen? Will they wait until the end of the season? Or will they act sooner if results don't improve? And if they do decide to replace Amorim, who will they choose? Will it be Xavi? Will it be Potter? Will it be Southgate? Or will it be someone else entirely that we haven't heard about yet? The fact that Fabrizio Romano is reporting that Xavi is interested and would go immediately suggests that there have been conversations behind the scenes. People at United might be sounding out potential candidates. They might be preparing for different scenarios. They might be getting their ducks in a row in case they need to make a move. But we shouldn't jump to conclusions. Just because Xavi is interested doesn't mean United are interested in him. Just because there's speculation doesn't mean a change is imminent. Amorim might still have time to prove himself. He might still be able to turn things around. The next few weeks are crucial. If United can string together some wins, if they can climb up the table, if they can show some signs of progress, then maybe the crisis talk will die down. Maybe Amorim will get the time he needs. But if the poor results continue, if we keep seeing the same mistakes and the same problems week after week, then something will have to give. United can't just drift along in mid-table. The pressure from fans, from the media, from everyone connected with the club will become too much. The bigger picture. What does success look like for United? Let